Welcome to this episode of Canadiens Coronary. I'm Nick Murdocco. That's Gary Whittaker. Some of you may hear us live every Saturday and Sunday on Montreal Sports Authority, the Team 990, where we talk all that is Montreal-themed sports. In this particular web show, we are all about the Montreal Canadiens. We are two heavy-set guys that tend to get a little bit overexcited when it comes to Montreal and the Montreal Canadiens.
Speak for yourself.
Nothing gets this man riled. We give our take on the Montreal Canadiens, the hot topics, the things that get our blood pumping. Given our size and given the name Canadiens Coronary, at the end of it, one of us may not make it. Hope you enjoy.
So, Nick, I think from a Montreal perspective, what we like to say is the question qui tue, it has to be, will Price actually get booed out of Montreal?
Well, my answer to you, Whittaker, is didn't he already get booed out of Montreal? He got booed in the preseason. He got booed away. He's getting booed in the media, in the newspapers. I'm thinking that if this doesn't change real quick, or, in effect, Carey Price doesn't come across with 4 shutouts in the next 6 games to continue the booing, I think that there may be actually a trade me right now scenario.
You know what? I'm going to have to disagree with you. I actually think that Carey Price will stand up and be that better than average goaltender, but more importantly, I think his teammates, the general manager, and probably even the president, if need be, will step up and actually try to create some order and calm the fans down. Because you know what, fans? It's called chill pill, and you need to find yourself a prescription.
Carey Price asked you to chill. We're asking to chill. How about chill? Moving along, talking about Carey Price, who's now everyone's going to be comparing Carey Price to Yaroslav Halak. It's going to go ad nauseum. Halak stats versus Price's stats. Already that's not fair to begin with. Let's look at a different take here. Halak versus Lars Eller, who the Canadiens traded in order to get. Do you think that this is what's going to be the make it or break it for this trade?
I think this is the main issue that people aren't realizing just yet. So the fact of the matter is, with Lars Eller starting off, and you know, I think he's playing fairly well to begin with. But when Yaroslav Halak starts doing what he's doing, people are going to compare the two throughout the entire season. It just hasn't started yet. There's been so much emphasis on Carey Price. People haven't started the comparisons against Lars Eller, and he better perform as well, because if he doesn't, they will be jumping on him like they do every time Guillaume Latendresse scores. Everyone right away takes a look and says, Pouliot, what have you done for me lately?
First of all, it's unfair to even go this way. Lars Eller is going to be playing in the 3rd, if not 4th line for the Montreal Canadiens going forward, unless barring any injuries or barring said Benoit Pouliot or other people's performance on the top 6 lines. You can't compare the two. I would implore all Habs fans, and those are real Habs fans, to forget the whole Halak versus Price, Halak versus Lars Eller. Let's look at the team in general, because right now it's two things completely separate, and Lars Eller, time will tell on this trade if Lars Eller gets the time that he needs. More importantly, though, there was a second component to this deal. Ian Schultz, he was a throw-in. Does that exactly the future, perhaps, enforcer of the Montreal Canadiens? We'll get to that later. Is that the other piece of this puzzle that makes it a good or bad trade for the Montreal Canadiens?
Well, I'll tell you what. I mean, the other pieces right now in terms of the major acquisitions made by the Montreal Canadiens and General Manager Pierre Gauthier.
Major?
Yeah, that's right. Quotation marks. That's what that means.
All right.
I'm being sarcastic. You're talking about Boyd and Halpern right now. Is this team improved on where they were last season after they let go Dominic Moore and Metropolitan, who scored, half of their goals on the power play?
Yeah. Yes, big acquisitions. Listen, no disrespect to Dustin Boyd or Jeff Halpern. Obviously, Montreal Canadiens fans were looking for big splashes. Those that actually understood the cap situation for the Montreal Canadiens knew that this was the best that they could probably do as far as getting any kind of impact players. Bottom line is, if you're going to compare the Glenn Metropolitan and the Dominic Moores to a Halpern and a Boyd, you're looking at age, you're looking at speed, and there's an upswing for these two players versus the two other players that are are journeymen in the NHL that have not held an address for more than 2 years. Metropolitan, for that matter, is playing in Europe right now. So I'm thinking that right now, just for that sake, the Montreal Canadiens did get better. They got younger, they got faster, and hey, if they do end up scoring 10 to 15 goals, it's an even keel right now. It's actually an advantage for the Montreal Canadiens.
Yeah, I think a lot of those fans actually expected the Canadiens to follow the Edmonton, New York route by sending in Gomez to the AHL. But you know what? The fact of the matter is that's simply not going to happen.
Not Gomez. You're talking Sheldon Surrey. Gomez is actually...
No, they wanted Gomez
Gomez
to follow the routes of those two, right?
Yeah.
And the fact of the matter is that was just not going to happen. And I loved your point right there. Fact is, Metropolitan, let's face it, 29 other teams didn't want him either. So, so it wasn't like, he was a
we got you.
Yes, thank you. It wasn't like he was going to be a major contributor this season as far as I'm concerned. I think other people will be able to step up. And we'll talk about that in terms of the breakout player.
You will not believe this, folks. We'll get to that in a second. Before we break into that, we're talking a bit about offense. Talk about offensive-minded.
Yes.
Purnell, Carl Subban. PK Subban.
Purnell.
I love me some Purnell, K. Subban.
Just calling him Purnell.
Yeah, I love that as well. It's just that's the whole thing about Purnell is that he is an offensive defenseman. Now, my question to you, Whittaker, because every time he touches the puck, people get out of their seats and say something's going to happen. Will he cause more? Will he cause more or score more goals this season?
You know what? I think unlike what happened in a few occasions last season, at the end of the season, well, in the playoffs especially, when PK would do his thing and everyone else would kind of like look around and say, where is he going? What's he doing?
Does he know the game plan?
So far this young season, the Canadiens have actually adjusted to PK Subban and his style of play. So I'm absolutely looking for PK to, while he will be giving up a few goals and while there will be some head-scratching moments when you say, oh man, how did he do that? He won't have as many Hal Gill moments as he might have had last season.
Ouch.
I think you're going to look for PK Subban to absolutely explode this year.
What are you dissing on Hal Gill for? I mean, this guy was the savior for the Montreal Canadiens in the postseason.
Yeah.
And you know what? PK Subban, here's the situation. The Canadiens did not adapt to his play. I think there was a little bit of a meet me halfway scenario here. I'm sure that he is now playing within the Jacques Martin system. He's going to be paired with a Roman Hamrlik when Roman Hamrlik is 100% fully in effect, and you're going to have him as the forward, the offensive defenseman, with Hamrlik more of the stay-at-home type, and that's going to make for a great combination for these two. And I'm calling it now. I'm thinking PK Subban is a front runner for Rookie of the Year.
All right, well, we're saying the same things, even if you like to argue with me and fight with me about stuff.
Well,
and,
the way you sounded was all negative.
Well, whatever. See, fighting is what I think is also going to be a major topic for the Montreal Canadiens this season.
If not here.
Without them actually having an enforcer, quote-unquote enforcer, who actually will get and have the lead, Nick Murdocco, and have the most fighting majors this season for the Canadiens de Montréal.
Okay, Tom Kostopoulos isn't there anymore. Ryan White got brought down. Ryan White got brought down. Alex Henry got brought down. It's got to be Travis Moen at this point. I know that some people are going to be looking at other players to step it up, the team toughness and all of that. But if you're looking at the top 6 lines, I don't think any of those are going to be doing the fighting for the Montreal Canadiens. And I think the one that's going to have to come to the rescue or enforce, per se, is going to have to be Travis Moen.
The Montreal Canadiens last season tried a different approach where they brought in team toughness and they brought in bigger, more sizable defensemen to help protect the players. There was clearly evident that was not enough. They actually needed people to drop the gloves. And one guy who I say is ready to put up is Maxime Lapierre. And one of the areas that I think that he's going to excel on this year is that with those 2 years now of boxing lessons, he's going to step it up, and he will lead the Montreal Canadiens in terms of fighting majors. He will step it up this season. Look for Maxime Lapierre to be the new, light heavyweight enforcer of the Montreal Canadiens.
I love me some Maxime Lapierre, but as soon as he gets his clock rung just once and gets the Tom Kostopoulos Award this year for the Montreal Canadiens, he will stop the fighting and go back to his antagonistic ways, and Travis Moen will have to come back and take care of business. Speaking of which, do the Montreal Canadiens actually need an enforcer this year? You mentioned it before. They brought in the enforcer of all enforcers last season in Big George Larac. That turned out really well for the Montreal Canadiens.
Yeah. No. Fact of the matter is, I think the Montreal Canadiens are trying a new style. Now, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work, right? Like the Toronto Raptors are trying to go for a European approach and be shooter first. I think the Montreal Canadiens are trying that European approach here when it comes to the hockey, and they're actually looking at skill and speed. Fact is, Jacques Martin has got this team playing a lot closer to his system, and you see them playing a lot more aggressive style of hockey. So they need to focus in on that and make sure that that continues to happen, and make sure that the team toughness that they've built, you know what, don't go away and try to bring in a guy that's not going to work, it's going to become vegan on you. Focus on the whole team playing tough, because no matter what, even teams with big enforcers, they're small guys get picked on. If the entire team plays tough, then the entire team doesn't get picked on.
Well, it pains me to agree with you. I will agree with you, but on a slightly different level. Jacques Martin does not like truculence. He is not a fan of the Brian Burke school of hockey. He actually said, in the words for Ian Schultz, basically telling people that, yeah, well, he's good, but he has to work on his foot speed and his cardio, which basically is, we have no room for you on this team, so you either better become a better hockey player or you're going to be going elsewhere. So that's not going to happen.
You know what, Nick? We talked a lot about who we thought are good and who we're not so sure about. What do you think is your breakout player? Among some of the players that some people think aren't necessarily that good, who do we think is going to break out for the Canadiens?
I am 100% convinced that Andre Kostitsyn is going to be the breakout player. Yeah, I've still got Sergei on the brain, and hopefully Andre does not. Andre Kostitsyn is going to be the breakout player for this Montreal Canadiens team. All through the preseason and towards the beginning of this new young season, Andre Kostitsyn has shown that he actually looks like he wants to play hockey. He's playing with energy. He's playing with enthusiasm. He's taking care of business on the defensive end, and it'll just be a question of time. Andre, shoot more, and you will actually make me look really good with this prognostication right here.
Yeah, I think Nick misunderstood the question, because the fact of the matter is that I think you thought breakout meant the first one to actually leave the Montreal Canadiens, either in a trade or go down to Hamilton. In terms of performance and actually going above and beyond what they've been known to do in their career, I think you're looking, and yes, to your point, I hinted at it plenty of times in the show so far, Maxime Lapierre. I think that he has developed himself into a player who is not only going to be good offensively, which he showed in the Pittsburgh series, and he showed that he's got some tremendous hand skills. I think he's a guy that's shown that, he led the Canadiens last season in hits. I think that's going to continue this season. I think he's going to add the scoring touch, and I actually think it's also going to add from hits to punches. I think he's going to do it all for the Montreal Canadiens this season. So, you know what? Maxime Lapierre is my pick for breakout player of the year.
Alrighty then, and you have him scoring how many goals this season?
Well, I've actually detracted already. So on air,
I'd like it.
30 to 35.
30 to 35 goals, Maxime Lapierre.
Well, yes, and to justify that, I mean, the fact of the matter is, I think if Metropolitan can score 10 goals on the power play, I think given the chance, I think you're going to see guys like Kostitsyn, and it's factored in on, I think Kostitsyn and Pouliot are either going to be on the third or fourth lines replacing him, or on their way out. So I think Maxime Lapierre is going to get a starring role and plenty of ice. I think you're going to see him on the power play. If he's not being detracted, if you will, but in terms of ice time for fighting majors, I think he will score 25 to 30. So yes, I am backing down from the 30 to 35, but I still think he's going to score twice as much as he ever has in the Montreal Canadiens uniform.
So before I go to my last question, you have Maxime Lapierre both leading the team in fighting majors and scoring as your breakout player.
Well, we're not talking about 300 minutes here, right?
Alrighty then. So after all is said and done, after the Canadiens have either improved or not improved on the forward position, the D position, and all of that, what are the chances and how long will it take, if and so it happens, does Jacques Martin get fired from the Montreal Canadiens?
I actually believe that it could happen as early as the end of this season. It won't actually happen, despite the people that might be clamoring for it. The Montreal Canadiens are still fighting for a playoff spot. It won't happen during the season, but I actually believe that it probably will happen at the end of this season. Or Jeff Molson will allow him his full 3 years to make his 3 to 5 year plan work. And if he sees his team continue on a downward trend, then he gets fired. But as it won't happen during the season, so I think it might go at the end of this season.
The Montreal Canadiens' mantra is make it to the playoffs. Not win the Stanley Cup, make it to the playoffs, and anything can happen. Proof of that was last season. They made it to the playoffs and almost made it to the Stanley Cup finals. The scenario here is Jacques Martin will not get fired this season. That is 100%, because I've already got the Montreal Canadiens making the playoff this season, for better or for worse, with goaltending, defense, and forwards all together as one unit. We'll be making the playoffs, and Jacques Martin keeps his job this season. We barely made it through this episode. I'm popping a sweat. I can actually hear your heartbeat from here. We hope we got your blood pumping. If you agree or disagree, you can always contact us. There's many ways to do it. Actually, you can probably subscribe to this episode right here and to future episodes of the Canadiens Coronary. And, of course, you can leave a comment right down there. That's where the comment section is. Leave a comment for us way below. And you can always write us at nick@thefranchise.ca and Gary at thefranchise.ca. We say we don't write each other. So, and of course, you can always listen to us live every Saturday and Sunday morning on Montreal Sports Authority, the Team 990, www.team990.com.